Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a fantastic edition assembled and presented by Storywise, right as part of our Authors of the Month series. We really want to motivate all of you incredible, valued authors on our Storywise Discovery Network to just keep writing. And honestly, what better way to get fired up than by looking at the absolute best of the best? We're going to explore how four brilliant literary titans, who all just happened to be born in June, by the way, channeled their unique identities, their wild environments, and their deep personal struggles into truly transformative literature. So, here's our roadmap for today. We are going to take a structured look at George Orwell, Gwendolyn Brooks, Octavia E. Butler, and Salman Rushdie to see exactly how they utilized writing as a tool for absolute truth, for literal survival, and for building community. Let's kick things off with a massive concept: words that outlive empires. Because these four wildly different authors all share one vital, undeniable core truth. Their words, their enduring text, completely outlasted the censorship, the poverty, and the oppressors who tried so hard to silence them. Which brings us right to our first titan, George Orwell, a master at exposing the lie and using fiction as a very real political weapon. Now, Orwell, who was actually born Eric Blair in India back in 1903, his early life was basically a masterclass in witnessing systemic injustice firsthand. He endured this private school education that he felt was just a total profit-driven sham. And then, working as a policeman in Burma, that exposed him to the literal dirty work of the empire up close and personal, which turned him into a lifelong enemy of imperialism. The guy tramped in poverty, washing dishes in London and Paris. Because of all that, Orwell came to view writing as a political weapon. He wrote to expose totalitarian lies, stating that his starting point was always, quote, a sense of injustice. He wrote because there was some lie he desperately wanted to expose to the world. But, and this is absolutely crucial, he also insisted that he couldn't write a book if it wasn't also a beautiful aesthetic experience. For Orwell, the hard truth and the art, they were completely inseparable. All right, let's pivot to our next author, Gwendolyn Brooks, and look at how she harvested community and reflected the beauty of the ignored. Gwendolyn Brooks was the first African-American to win a Pulitzer Prize, which is incredible, but her legacy goes so much deeper than awards. In the 1940s, Brooks kicked off her career writing these highly introspective, deeply empathetic portraits of everyday urban Black life in Chicago. She was writing about inner lives that were just largely ignored by the mainstream at the time. But then, fast forward to the late 1960s, deeply influenced by the Black Power movement, her work shifted. It became sassier, more revolutionary. She started publishing with Black-owned presses like Broadside Press, using her platform to speak directly to and really uplift her community. She embodied this community focus completely. As she so beautifully put it, we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. And she literally lived those words. She dedicated her life to mentoring younger artists, teaching, and even starting her own small presses just to publish guides for the next generation of poets. She knew that writers don't exist in a vacuum, right? We grow together. And for all of you tuning in, if you're looking for practical advice as an author today, take a page right out of Brooks's playbook. When teenagers would ask her how to get published or how to make a bunch of money, she actually found it a little saddening. Her advice was purely focused on the craft. She told them, keep a notebook of your thoughts and feelings. Focus on the raw material of your humanity first, and let the business side come later. Next up is the phenomenal Octavia E. Butler. We're talking about reclaiming the future, Afrofuturism, and overcoming some serious adversity. Butler utilized science fiction to reclaim power and imagine entirely new futures. Raised in Pasadena by a widowed mother, Butler was incredibly shy and even struggled with slight dyslexia. But her drive? Unmatched. No way was she giving up. At just 10 years old, she begged for a Remington typewriter and would sit there pecking out stories with 2 fingers. At 12, she watched this B movie called Devil Girl from Mars, thought to herself, I can write a better story than that, and just started drafting her novels. At 13, her own aunt told her, Negroes can't be writers. But she ignored that barrier and kept on typing. Fast forward to 1995, and she makes history as the first science fiction writer to ever win a MacArthur Genius Fellowship. She once explained her motivation so simply, saying, I began writing about power because I had so little. She literally took on these exhausting, less demanding temporary jobs just so she would have the energy to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning to write. Blending science fiction with African-American spiritualism, she forced readers to confront uncomfortable truths and essentially wrote herself into the literary canon through pure, unadulterated willpower. Our final June author is Salman Rushdie. His story is all about defending the narrative, the power of magic realism, and unyielding resilience.
Rushdie is a living testament to defending your narrative against unimaginable threats. His whole life has been this deep dive into identity. He migrated from Bombay to an English boarding school at 13 and felt totally alienated because, as he put it, he was foreign, clever, and bad at sports. But the real adversity, the unthinkable stuff, came later. In 1989, his novel The Satanic Verses resulted in a fatwa, a literal death sentence, forcing him to live in hiding under the alias Joseph Anton for years. And we all know he even survived a horrific, brutal onstage stabbing in 2022. Yet, despite immense prejudice and literal violence meant to silence him, he never, ever stopped writing.
Now, when it comes to his iconic writing style, Rushdie champions magic realism for a very specific, almost practical reason. He argues that traditional realism depends on a shared agreement between the writer and the reader about how the world works. But today, let's be real, our reality is completely fragmented, highly disputed, and honestly, a bit insane. Because of that, Rushdie says magic realism is actually the best tool to tell the truth. You add the magic simply to describe a world that is no longer realistic. And here is a fantastic, playful piece of advice for all our Storywise authors. When Rushdie was in hiding, he started writing a children's book for his 10-year-old son. He showed the kid the first few chapters, and his son looked at it and said, "It doesn't have enough jump." What does jump mean? It means get on with it. Tell the story without dilly-dallying. Rushdie actually took the manuscript back, rewrote it with way more jump, and it became the beloved classic Haroun and the Sea of Stories. So a pro tip for you, give your narratives jump. This all brings us to the unifying legacy of these 4 incredible literary pillars, the immortal power of stories, and exactly why books outlive the tyrants. Rushdie once noted that dictators and tyrants always come after writers. Why? Because writers have their own narratives, and oppressors desperately want a monopoly on the truth. But, as Rushdie so brilliantly put it, books survive, writers not so much. From Orwell's stark anti-totalitarianism to Butler's visionary Afrofuturism, Brooks's community-driven poetry, and Rushdie's literal physical survival, the oppressor eventually fades away. But the text remains. The written word is unbelievably strong. Seeing how these 4 authors shaped our reality against all odds, I want to leave you, the amazing authors of the Storywise Discovery Network, with this to really chew on. What truth will you write? And whose narrative are you reading? Because your stories, they have the power to outlast empires. So keep that notebook handy, give your narrative some serious jump, and keep writing. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.